For the second time in the past 6 seasons, the Eagles are back in the Super Bowl. In a world where Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are making their third trip since 2018, and the Patriots' dominance is a not-too-distant memory, Philly's return to Super Bowl Sunday may not seem all that notable. The difference is that these Eagles are back with a new coach, a new quarterback, and hell, a new team this time around. So how did they do it? How did Howie Roseman and this organization rebuild themselves, and in the process, the best roster in football in just 5 years? Like almost any deep dive into an NFL team, the heart of the Eagles' success lies at quarterback. But in Philly's case, it's also about what that quarterback represents. A lot has been made of a $1.6 million cap hit and the ways it's allowed Howie Roseman to stockpile talent across the rest of the roster. That financial flexibility and Hurts' own ascension from preseason question mark to legitimate MVP candidate fueled Philly's dominance all season. But to really grasp why Hurts has made this run possible, you need to go all the way back to draft day in 2020.
Well, first of all, probably sound like a broken record up to this point, but I don't think this culture of this city could fit me any better, just with the passion that they bring and how bad they want to win, and I'm wired the same way. So extremely thrilled to be here for quite a while now, and just excited for it.
Carson Wentz's unraveling over the past 3 years makes the decision to draft Jalen Hurts in the second round of the 2020 draft look like a no-brainer in hindsight. But at the time, the move felt shocking.
What is the best case scenario for this pick? That your starting quarterback, Carson Wentz, retires or gets injured and Jalen Hurts comes in and has to play and plays real well? What kind of use of resources is that when you have the 53rd overall pick, you have holes on the defensive line, linebacker, safety, cornerback, draft another wide receiver? How about the offensive line? I mean, across the board, this is not the Ravens. This is not the Chiefs. You do not have some kind of elite roster where you can use picks like this on backup quarterbacks who are not going to get on the field. And
they don't have other picks. They don't have other high picks.
They don't have other picks. But that is just my bottom line. I mean, I do not get this pick at all. This is a disaster, in my opinion.
Teams that hand out market-setting contracts to passers don't spend top 60 picks on quarterbacks 11 months later. But the Eagles aren't most teams. Stockpiling quarterbacks has been part of Roseman's MO for a while now. When the Eagles made their big swing for Wentz in the 2016 draft, it had been less than 2 months since Roseman had handed out sizable contracts to both Sam Bradford and Chase Daniel. Devoting resources to 2 veterans would have dissuaded most GMs from chasing a quarterback at the top of the draft. But Roseman's approach seemed to be, we'll figure it out. And they did. Only a few months after drafting Wentz, a catastrophic knee injury to Teddy Bridgewater left the Vikings in need of a quarterback, and the Eagles were able to ship Bradford to Minnesota for a first-round pick. Philly knows that quarterbacks are valuable around the league, even if you're ready to move on. And that's exactly what happened when Philly decided to turn the page on Carson Wentz in early 2021. The QB-needy Colts were willing to give up an extra first-rounder and more to bring Wentz to Indianapolis. And that pick would eventually prove crucial in building the 2022 Eagles. And Hurts' rookie-scale salary made it even easier to eat Wentz's dead money. Hurts was an off-ramp, a pivot, a change of direction that most teams never would have entertained. The Eagles did. And it's brought them to the doorstep of another championship. The decision to draft Hurts is the most prominent example of Roseman maintaining flexibility in the team-building process, but it's far from the only one. Before the 2021 draft, the Eagles traded the 6th overall pick to Miami, down 6 spots. They picked up a future first-round pick in the process, and still left the first round with Devontae Smith. You know, the guy who smashed college receiving records at Alabama and became the first receiver to win the Heisman in 3 decades. Roseman's maneuvering down the draft gave Philly an additional first-rounder in 2022. And remember that deal for Carson Wentz? Yep. In total, the Eagles had 3 first-round picks and were poised to control day 1 of last year's draft. After some more wheeling and dealing with the Saints that netted the Eagles another first-rounder in 2023, Roseman eventually sent the 18th overall pick to the Titans for A.J. Brown. When the Eagles look at draft picks, they rarely just see players on the draft board. They see future picks. They see ammo to move up the draft. And they see trade chips that can be used for elite players that inconceivably had fallen out of favor in Tennessee. Adding Brown to the mix was the final piece of the puzzle for the Eagles offense, the last infinity stone. The move gave Philly a pair of high-end wide receivers, and together with Dallas Goedert, completed one of the league's best pass-catching trios. In concert with his own growth as a player, the quality of those receiving options helped accelerate Jalen Hurts' development and transformed the Eagles' offense from an ultra-effective run-heavy attack in 2021 into one of the most explosive, well-rounded units in the league. With Hurts and his dynamic rushing ability at the controls, the Eagles were still the most devastating rushing team in the NFL. But this year, only the Chiefs finished with more completions of at least 20 yards. Sure is nice when a plan comes together. When I think of the Eagles front office, the first word that comes to mind is proactive. Roseman rarely sits on his hands, and that restless mindset usually involves looking under every rock and around every corner for ways to improve his roster. It's a combination of persistent deal-making and the wherewithal to pick up $20 bills that other teams have simply dropped on the street. Just take a look at the Eagles' defense. The Eagles traded 3rd and 5th round picks for Darius Slay, poaching the Pro Bowl cornerback from a crumbling Matt Patricia regime in Detroit. This year, Roseman dealt a 5th round pick to the cap-strapped Saints for safety C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who is set to hit free agency this spring. A few months earlier, the Eagles signed cornerback James Bradbury to a 1-year, $10 million deal 9 days after he was released by the Giants. Those are the 3 most prominent, important members of Philly's championship-caliber secondary. None were acquired by what you might deem conventional means. The Eagles have also never been shy about dipping a toe into traditional free agency when the price is right. Both Javon Hargrave and Hassan Reddick commanded considerable money on the open market, but those deals now seem quaint in retrospect. Combined, Hargrave and Reddick command $28 million in average annual salary. Together, they piled up 27 sacks this season. You can do the math there. Even with Hurts' valuable salary in mind, it's fair to wonder how the Eagles can afford such a star-studded roster. The answer is in the fine print. Just take a look at the details of Reddick's deal. His 3-year contract involved a signing bonus, an option bonus, and 3 void years on the end of the deal that prorated the value of those bonuses over a longer period of time. Philly's contracts are littered with mechanisms for pinching pennies against the cap and trying to outrun the financial ramifications for doing so. Almost all of their prominent players have voidable years tacked onto their deals to lower their cap numbers over the next couple of years. For cap nerds, the Eagles are the class of the league. Their approach is a combination of savvy and aggression that consistently provides tiny edges in squeezing every drop of value from their roster. No player embodies the Eagles' willingness to look for advantages other teams don't, more than Jordan Mailata. A former rugby league player in his native Australia, the 6'8" Mailata was invited to the States to take part in the NFL's International Pathway Program. Despite never having played a down of organized American football, the Eagles used a 7th round pick on Mailata in the 2018 draft. Mailata's path from novelty NFL project to quality NFL left tackle explains a lot about how the Eagles are back in the Super Bowl. He was developed by Jeff Stoutland, one of the league's best offensive line coaches, and a holdover from the 2017 Super Bowl staff. He joined an offensive line room with Jason Kelsey and Lane Johnson, 2 perennial All-Pros who represent the through line between the last Super Bowl team and this one. The Eagles signed him to a below-market extension after just 1 season as a starter, locking in an ascending player before they had to and saving considerable money in the process. On the Eagles, Mailata developed into a star. There's no telling how his career might have gone if he hadn't been given that chance. Most of the players from the Eagles' 2017 title team may be gone, but the values that helped Roseman build that team haven't wavered. The Eagles are dedicated to their lines on both sides of the ball. They're endlessly searching for ways both big and small to improve every inch of their roster. And they're driven to maintain long-term flexibility without sacrificing short-term ambition. Philly's return to the Super Bowl in such short order as a remade team is an organizational victory that serves as a reminder of what other teams should be chasing.